Welcome to Broadway.
Thank you so much.
You made your Broadway debut.
I did. I know. It's exciting. It's one of those. I think very often what happens, it ends up being one of those dreams deferred.
Yeah.
Sometimes because if an actor is anything, they're typically horribly and profoundly insecure. So you think to yourself, well, it's never going to be me. It's never going to happen. But it did. And it's as everyone says, it's as surreal as everyone says. Because at the end of the day, where the surreal stuff comes from is that you just go to work. You go to work. And you're filled with joy that you get to do this as a job. It's such a wonderful and honorable profession. There's not a lot of professions, especially in this day and age, that you can say, oh, my profession's a 3,000-year-old profession. You know what I mean? It's such an interesting thing, and it's been amazing, and my cup runneth over.
What have you enjoyed the most about being on Broadway? So I know it was a dream of yours.
For the most part, the thing is the camaraderie with your castmates. I'm also. I think a lot of it is because I'm an athlete, and the best thing is that you like being on a team, and you like feeling. In fact, Jerry Zaks, who directed Meteor Shower, used to say often during the rehearsal process, he goes, "You guys, it's going to be wonderful. And sweethearts, once you all learn your lines, it's going to be so good and everything. It's just going to be like the Golden State Warriors out there." He can't help. It's very. I mean, they're very akin to each other. The kind of being able to the physical and emotional telepathy that you have with your fellow castmates or fellow teammates is what really excites me and really energizes me. And it's those days when you say something at the same time and you weren't expecting to, or that little twist comes. And it's the same thing as playing basketball and just knowing a person's going to set that pick and you didn't talk about it before and it just happens. And that is the thing, that camaraderie and that sense of that fluid sense of a group mind is what really excites me. Mostly, I think a lot of it comes from my background in improvisation. So the thing that I craved and I loved and I enjoyed so much during my theatrical training carried over into my improvisational training. It wasn't about making it up on the spot as much as it was everybody, I'm quoting somebody right here, Mike Nichols said this about Nichols and May, was that the best moments when we were improvising would be these moments where you would set up the environment and kind of figure out what your relationship was, and then all of a sudden the two of you would know where the comedic engine of the scene was going to happen. It was just a matter of who was going to get there first. And so they would, who's going to figure out the game of how this scene should be played. Well, that's been prescribed, right? Steve Martin has already written that part. But that's the thing that I love. It's once all of that's aside and you're just in behavior land. Yeah. That's why anybody does it. Yeah. That's really, I feel like, the reason you do it. Yeah.
Well, you were sharing the stage with Amy Schumer, Laura Benanti, Jeremy Shamus. It's like a tennis match up there with the four of you.
Great way of putting it. Really great way of putting it. Yeah, it's all of that bumping back and forth. It's lots of assists before the basket is scored. You know what I mean? Lots of the setup seemed to be as dynamic as when the slam dunk happened or the home run happened or the touchdown happened, to speak using my sports theater,
analogy.
Mashup, yeah. Analogy, yeah.
Working with your idol, Steve Martin.
Well, here's the thing about Steve. Steve is very different. If you guys are Steve Martin fans and you know his film work, that kind of unbridled energy and that very extroverted sensibility that he has on screen is not who he is in real life. He's an extremely quiet man. He lives a very considered life. He's a thinker. He's intellectual, and he's also a fine tuner. And he's been that way his whole career. It's part of where his brilliance comes from, is that he never quits trying to refine and find clarity in whatever he's working on. And I was actually talking to Martin Short recently, and he and Martin Short and Steve they work together a lot. And Marty said, it's interesting, if you talk to Steve and go, think about how wild your success was in the 70s, when remember the white suit and the bunny ears and all the wild and crazy guy stuff. He said, I mean, think about that. That alone could have been the measure of your career. And Steve said, a lot of energy, not a lot of substance. He was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
right? SNL and The Jerk and all of the writing he was doing, everything. And he said, too much energy, not a lot of substance. Then you jump to the next part of his career, and then he has something, not disparaging, but some critique of when he was doing most of the film work. And then you talk about how wonderful his lyrical and beautiful the books are. I mean, just maybe they were too stilted. He's never satisfied, and there is this kind of divine dissatisfaction that artists should always be experiencing. Once you start resting on your laurels, then all of a sudden you realize you've made the same movie 6 times in a row. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
He loves the theater.
He adores the theater. Yeah. Well, because his taste of the theater, it's funny, we were sitting in the audience, we were doing tech, and he was just talking to me, and I just wanted to talk to him, you know. And he said, it's interesting, when I was at Knott's Berry Farm in Los Angeles when he was 16 years old, or 19 years old, he had just finished doing all this work at Knott's Berry Farm, and then he had done some summer stock theater. And I don't remember what the play was, but he was doing some summer stock, and he said, and I just kind of did it like melodrama. I just did melodrama. And then 35 years later, he's in Godot with Robin Williams. And he said, he said, you know what, I just did the same thing. I just did the same thing over again. And it worked. It worked. Try that. I was like, whatever you say, Steve. And it's really fascinating that was his takeaway from acting.
Yeah.
But he loves watching the theater. And he'd come to the show all the time. He's in LA now working on something else, but he would come to the show, and we wouldn't know he'd be there. And we'd do our performance, and we'd come backstage, and there's Steve with this just beaming, and he's just like, ooh, ooh. And he's got like cards like these, and I have this note, so I'm gonna put that line in that you improvised tonight. I'm gonna put that in. That's good. So that should be in the script. And then he backs up and emails you later to let you know. I wanted to know I put holy shit sticks and grab my balls and call me Robert. They're in the script now. Those are in the script. Those are really good improv. I don't know what they mean, Keegan, but that was hilarious. And all 4 of us have pitched in and put lines into the. By the way, Laura Bernanti had to tell me this. I don't know. What do I know? So I said to Laura backstage, we spent a lot of time like this close to each other backstage, like hiding in the wings. And I said, given the energy and the creature and the animal that Amy Schumer is, she's instantly inspiring and instantly creating. And she's such a strong improviser. And you think of her as, you know, in her stand-up, all of that material is measured and written. And that's true. It just shows the diversity of who she is and the spectrum of what she can do. She's unbelievable. So I said to Laura, look at all the stuff that has happened in this show in the last 2 months. I said, half of the hardest, most solid laughs are improvised. And I said, this can't be normal. And she goes, oh, no, this never happens on Broadway. No, this is an absolute no-no on Broadway. Absolute no-no. And she goes, and I'm loving every minute of it. Because what are you gonna do? I mean, Amy's gonna do what she wants, and it's brilliant. Why would you stop? Like, why would you stop? You're like, oh, that's not in the lines, deal with it. Yeah, you see the people, a man just died in the audience, and a woman just coughed her lung up, so we're gonna keep that line. It's amazing. So my first experience on Broadway has been this very fluid, loose, playful thing. Yeah. And so I want to do Broadway again because I want to have the Broadway experience. I want to have where I have to, because there's that lovely challenge of doing almost the same thing every night, but finding a way to trick your mind into making it fresh every night. I want that challenge because this is great. I mean, it's perfectly fine. We can say whatever the hell we want. So that liberal kind of looseness to the show is wonderful, and it makes it a very unique production. But I want to have that other experience too, you know. Yeah.
I love that. Very interesting. Yeah. You were working with one of the finest directors. You started talking about Jerry Zaks. Talk about the difference of working on comedy.
Why am I touching those? I don't know why I'm touching those.
It's good, right? We all have that.
Hi, I'm Richie Rich. Here we go. Want to flip? Let's switch it. Okay.
We'll switch
Do a little improv game. Okay.
Talk about honing comedy for this play as opposed to how quick you have to do it on TV. Like when you work in the theater.
Yeah, that's the thing that, it's funny, it's interesting, and Jerry and I had a nice conversation about this. I don't know, there's a bunch of reasons that I'm just ignorant of. I'm woefully ignorant of. Because I'm a producer, but not in the way I'm not a producer like every kind of producer wrapped in one. That's my fiance. She's every single producer wrapped into one. She's producing my life in the most wonderful way right now. It's great. It's amazing. And I mean that in the most positive way. I'm not trying to be pejorative about. I wouldn't be here. Actually, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my fiance. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
But the thing about Sidney Lumet, the great Sidney Lumet, used to, yes, please, we should. Sidney Lumet used to do everything he could to work a theatrical-like rehearsal process before they ever got anywhere near a set. And that to him was the most important thing to do. Well, let's just rehearse it so that it becomes behavior to the actors. And I know a few actors who did films with him. That sounds like the most glorious thing in the world. Because then you do 2 takes and you move on. Like, why wouldn't a producer want it to be done that way? Why would you not want to take 3 weeks prior to the shoot and rehearse it? And that's not something that we do in this industry, in our industry. We just don't do that as much. You go to China, you talk about, there'll be movies that they make in China, like maybe they'll make a kung fu movie or a wuxia film, and you'll see that, you'll go, oh, well, that's amazing. How did they do that? Well, they subsidize the filmmaking there. So you can do 60 takes. You can do 60 takes. And no one's going. Jackie Chan, we talked about, he goes, there's a thing I've seen in Jackie Chan films where you watch a movement and you're like, wait a minute, he just took that, he hit that guy, and then the fan, and then he caught the fan. And then I heard a Q&A with him one time. Well, it was 121 takes. But nobody cares because it's paid for. So who cares? So you get to get this piece of magic on screen because nobody cares. And that's the beauty of the theater, is that that is the process. Is that we're going to hone this and hone this. When I was at the Second City, people walk up to you on the street like, man, I saw your show. I'm sorry, Chicago. I saw your show. You guys were fantastic, and you guys are so much better than Saturday Night Live. And I was like, that's completely unfair to Saturday Night Live. Yeah. That's completely unfair. They are putting up a show that they've rehearsed 3 times while they rewrite it every week. I had 3.5 months to write this show. So, geez, we better be better than SNL. I mean, we had three months to write it and a month of previews? Yeah, it better be better than SNL. It's the fact that I laugh every week at SNL. That's amazing. That shows the talent of those people on that show, the writing staff and the actors on that show. That's insane. It's insane that they can put quality material out there every week. The schedule is such a challenge. So in the theater, in a manner, it's like a luxury. It's just this amazing luxury that you get to hone it, and you understand why you're doing it. Very often on camera, sometimes you have to just give yourself a line reading. You know, there are those days where you just don't have the time, and they got you in they got you in an ECU or a close-up, and you just go, and that's all. There's nothing behind it. You're not acting. There's no behavior. You're just going, and that's it. And then let the editor work their magic, because you just don't have the time. Editors should win all the Oscars. There just shouldn't even be Oscars. They should just give them to the editors.
Fabulous.
They should just give them to the editors. I believe that, but you know who said that? Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep said
Fabulous.
That. She says, the editor.
Has being a part of Meteor Shower made you a better actor?
100%. 100%. Because it helps me with my listening skills. Yeah. The challenge I have, I can't speak for every other actor, a challenge that I face often is the challenge of actually, it's a similar challenge in both on stage and real life. I shouldn't be waiting for you to finish speaking so I can speak. I should be listening to everything you say and then react to what you say, right? That's the whole, there's the old saying, it's like, I'm not an actor, I'm a reactor. And, I can't take credit for that one either. But there's a truth to that. And it's why improvisation is so infectious. Yeah. Because it's the only thing you've got. And one of the greatest, so it's made me a better actor in that way, because there are nights when I go, there are also nights in projects I've done in my life where I've gone, oh, you really haven't learned these lines rote. Because when you find yourself reacting to a person, like in the rehearsal process, you're like, I got these lines, I got these lines. And then the director gives you a note, and you change it, or you actually, you release everything and all abandon, and you're actually just listening to the other actor, and then you can't come up with the line, because it's not in your marrow. It's not in your marrow. And that's what you got to do. You got to make sure it's in your marrow. And sometimes that's, Laura was saying to me the other day on stage, backstage, she was going, that's why I love a nice long run. The best ingredient is when it's so in your marrow, you're dreaming about it, it's in your marrow, it's just like you know how to speak another language fluently. And then that way, that line should be, it should be this, that on Tuesday, but it should be that on Thursday, and on Saturday in the matinee, it should be like this. Same words, but it's always, you should always be reacting to whatever's going on with them in that moment. And that's something I'll never stop learning.
Yeah.
Because you have to not be afraid to just release and go, trust me, the words are there. Jerry's like, oh, sweetheart, the words are there. You got the words are there, the words are there. And so, that's the greatest. When the words are there, that's the greatest, because then you're just flying and just behaving. Yeah.
Well, the four of you are perfect in this show. You have this weekend. That's what you have, right? You have this weekend if you haven't seen the show yet. Just a terrific job. Well, let's go back to the beginning. Growing up in Detroit, where did your love for performing begin, and what were your earliest creative outlets?
It began with television. It began with television. I was a big fan of early SNL, and I used to also watch old movies. My other favorite thing was I've watched countless kung fu movies. That's my favorite thing. The plot's very simple, and I always was interested. There's something that I gravitate toward when the plot is simple, and then all of a sudden you fill in the set piece with all this beautiful, beautiful movement and action, and then you just move to the next. And I love, especially when it's unabashed, when someone does it unabashedly. When someone unabashedly goes, we're only going to write this little plot point to move here, so we have an excuse for another fight scene. I love that. I just love that, because it's so. They're not even trying hard to trick you or even create any artifice that helps you know what I mean. And then every now and again in the world, something gets created like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, where the acting's gorgeous and the set designs, when everything comes together, and you need the fight scene as opposed to making an excuse or having a conceit for the fight scene, and those were my earliest influences. And I think watching like. It's weird. I used to watch award shows, and I didn't know who the people were. Like, I didn't know who they were. I just knew somehow they're different than me or set apart from me, or I guess they're important, these people. I wasn't quite sure what the situation was, but I was fascinated by them. And then so really on the playground at school is where the first outlets were. I was a painfully shy kid, and I did not have any. I had no designs on being an actor. I wanted to be an actor, but I'm just a kid in Detroit with two parents who are social workers that make 30 grand a year, and you know what I mean. And you're just there, and nobody I know is in the entertainment industry. I don't even know how you do this. So it seems like it's a thing that people from other places do. Or there's a Cabbage Patch in Los Angeles that just sprouts actors. You know, I'm like, they don't come from anywhere else. I didn't know. So you just played with your friends and made jokes. As you can see, I'm a man of a slight build. I always have been. I was not a strong kid. I wasn't gonna be able to fight my way out of something. So you joke your way out of something, or you charm your way out of something. And the other kids can catch a football. That's their currency. This was my currency. So I didn't think it was a real great practical skill. I didn't think it would become my livelihood or my vocation, but yeah, that's pretty much the answer to that question, yeah.
Because you wanted to be a veterinarian.
I wanted to be a veterinarian.
But what kind? A truck driving?
I was gonna, one of my favorite TV shows was BJ and the Bear. No, you're not. Yeah? You're not old enough to know what BJ and the Bear is. This lady's living right. Yeah. There is no way she is old enough to know BJ and the Bear. BJ and the Bear was a team for anybody who's under my age. So, you know, remember BJ, like he was a truck driver and he had adventures and he had a pet chimpanzee. Like, who doesn't want to do that? Who doesn't want to be a truck driver with a pet chimpanzee? And I said, oh, I'll one-up it. I'll be a truck driver. I'll drive around and be a veterinarian. I'll like go to and then have adventures, like solve crimes and help animals. I love it. I mean, why not? I mean, that's as good a job as any other job. And I'll have, like, I don't know, like a mongoose as opposed to a chimpanzee. I don't know, something. I'm picking some other exotic animal. Ocelot.
That could be a new show for you now.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
I could just do it right now.
Watch it, right?
Super
watch it, right?
Yeah. Make like a nice retro show, right?
Yeah,
right?
totally.
KMK and the Bear, or, you know, something like that.
Fabulous.
Anyway, So I loved that show. So I thought I'll be a veterinarian. And the more I went in school, like by the time I got to junior high, I realized I do not have an aptitude for mathematics. I have a feeling I'm not the only one in this room. And this is just like, yeah, screw math. And so when I realized I was gonna have to do nothing but math to be a veterinarian, like it's not just, like I went to the vet, that was cool. The vet just petted my dog's head and gave her a shot, and I was like, that's easy. But no, so I said that was not gonna be, I was gonna go on a different career path, but I didn't know what it was at the time, but yeah, that was my thing.
So how did playing Jesus in Godspell at 17 change everything for you?
My drama teacher, well, you know what? How it changed everything is that when somebody believes in you, you're given extra currency. It's the most important thing in the world that my drama teacher, was our choir teacher in my high school, I just went, well, I'm going to do my best, and then my friend Chris Burke is going to get cast because Chris Burke is a senior. That's just the way the life works, right? I grew up in a kind of a working class town. Seniority, you move to the next step, and that's how that works. So Chris is a senior. Chris will be cast as Jesus. And then when I found out I was cast as Jesus, I'm like, but what? You're not, there's no escaping it. Yeah. At least this person, who is an authority figure in your life that you respect, that person says, no, you can do the job. There's something intrinsic about you. I'm not picking anybody else, I'm picking you. And I know you can do it, Keegan. It means the world to you. It means the world to you when somebody gives you a shot, when someone gives you a chance. Then you can't argue. Now, you could work really hard and sabotage yourself. But I didn't want to let her down.
Yeah.
I didn't want to let her down. And so I said, well, maybe the easiest way to get through this is to maybe just believe what Miss Rashid says. Maybe I'll just believe her that I have what it takes to do it. And then I'll be able to make her happy. It wasn't about making me happy. It was about not wanting to disappoint her.
And you loved it.
I loved every second of it. Someone said to me, well, how did it feel, man? How did it feel? A friend of mine, like, and you're in high school. I'll never forget a guy in high school. He was a senior, and he was really lovely to me. And I was, I think I was a junior or whatever. And he said to me after the show, he's like, man, I was just sitting there, man. I don't even know, man. I was just like sitting there, and I was just like at the end, and then they were like carrying you and stuff, and like, prepare you, and then I was like, what? My face is wet, man. and then being an 18-year-old boy, it's like, fuck you, fag, because you can't, he's like, vulnerability, But how?
Yeah.
But what was that? Yeah. You know what I mean? That guy, and another guy who's on the football team, like crazy hard-ass guy on the football team, he's like, the kid was out there, man, in his boxer shorts, takes guts, man, takes guts. And so something, and then all of a sudden I'm looking at these people, but you see this group of people out there, like a single organism. And I went, oh, screw veterinary medicine. This is where it's at. What is this? And I wouldn't have done it if it hadn't been for Miss Mary Rashid.
See?
Yeah.
Well, this past summer, you made your New York stage debut as Horatio, starring opposite Oscar Isaac in Sam Gold's critically acclaimed, sold-out run of Hamlet at the Public Theater. Yes, one of the best nights I have ever spent in the theater.
Oh, my gosh.
Was that a dream come true, like a full circle moment
That was a full circle moment. I wanted to play Horatio since I was either in graduate school or like late in college. So a 23-year-old dream came true. Yeah. A 23-year-old dream. And so it was just amazing. And to be able to do it with Sam, for him to just, I wish I could remember the line. There was some line in the New York Times about something about the dusty old cathedral and how either he was excavating it or knocking it down, or some wonderful kind of allusion to that we're not going to say, oh, this august thing is taking place. And he just didn't care in the best way. And the cuts to the script that I thought were so interesting. He would make cuts to the script, and he goes, I'm going to make this the most accessible version of Hamlet ever. I want it to be about you people, you actors, being able to express yourselves with the most clarity possible, so that the audience can also feel and experience that, as opposed to there's lots of language about this and that, and it's beautiful. And sometimes people go and see Shakespeare, and you look at the muscularity with which somebody's done something, you just go, oh, wow, they got all those words out. I don't understand what's going on, but I heard all the words, and they were where I'm from in the Midwest. This is what people say in the Midwest. In the Midwest, your mom and your aunt come to see the show, and afterwards you hear them murmuring about somebody, and they're like, they were so articulate. They're so articulate, which is their way of saying that's a thing that you can do that I can't do. But that doesn't have anything to do with it connecting with you emotionally. Sam Gold. What makes Sam Gold so special is that he traffics in the qualitative aspects of our craft. And lots of people traffic in the quantitative aspects of our craft. And I think it works both in theater and on screen, right? For example, if I am playing a character who is blind, and we all have we've had an experience with a blind human. So if I play a blind person, you can check off in your mind, oh, that's how blind people walk, and that's what blind people's faces look like, and that's how blind people turn their head when they hear. We should give him the Oscar, because I've seen a blind person, and that's how blind people act. As opposed to something that's qualitative, which is just that, oh God, she's ripping something out of me. She's invoking something. She's evocative, and I don't know why. You know what I mean? So does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Sam wants his work to be evocative and qualitative, and it's easier. It's easier to try to do quantitative work. So when I say clarity, I mean clarity of the heart, not oral clarity, necessarily speaking. And so the piece was so raw and so revealing. And I remember, I'd be in rehearsal, and I'm like, oh, now, finally. It's been, all these years I get to use my training. And then here's Sam Gold. Stop. Throw the verse out. I want to hear your Keegan Midwestern accent. You're softening R's. It's getting a little transatlantic. I want you to take all of your proverbial clothes off and just do this show for 4 hours a night, naked in front of this audience. That's what I want from you and everybody else in this cast. And I feel like we, to some degree, achieved that.
Oh, you did.
Especially Oscar. And what a challenge for Oscar. Oscar, before we started rehearsal, about a month and a half before rehearsal, he was sitting at his mother's deathbed saying those speeches, because his mother adored Shakespeare. And to watch him, to watch a person be that daring every day, to watch a person go, oh, well, no, every day, which is what we're all supposed to do. Not necessarily right now, but I mean, so it was so meaningful. It was meaningful because I was understanding on so many levels. There'd be days when it was fun. Oscar's such a playful man, and the play had such a buoyant energy about it. Sam was very, very strategic. Let's keep it as buoyant and as fun and as clever and as sharp as we can for 2 acts. And then we earn kicking them in the teeth in the third act. But you can't come out at the top of the piece and just start beating everybody down. You know what I mean? And Oscar, I'm sorry, I jumped. Oscar was always very good at saying at the end, like we get off stage at the end of the play and be like, whoo, just made it. Just say, and there were days where what that meant was there'd be days where you'd go, whoo, just made it, and just start weeping. Because hold it. I had an acting teacher in graduate school, I'd never forget this, for dramatic work more than comedic work, but both. Surface tension, in the beer commercial, and you pour the beer and then the head goes, and then there's it's called surface tension, where the beer's hanging. If you just tap the glass, it would pour over the side of the glass. You want to keep them there the whole time. You want to keep the surface tension the whole time. Weep all you want at home. But Oscar watched a whole bunch of other Hamlets, and he's like, geez, oh, Pete, with the crying. you know? So he did everything he could. You'd see tears squirting out of his face, and he's just moving forward and driving it forward. It was as if he was saying, screw me for crying. And that's what you want, don't do it. And then there were days you couldn't make it. You know, there were days where and so it was great, I loved it. It was counterintuitive, especially for a young actor. When you're young, you're like, I didn't do it tonight, I didn't have it, I didn't cry. You know what I mean? As opposed, it's the opposite. We're trying to get off the stage before we start crying. We're trying to get off the stage before we start crying. And so it was, and it was Sam giving us these little guideposts to get to kind of re-energize yourself emotionally. So re-energize yourself emotionally, but don't cry, don't cry. Yeah. Don't cry. Get in the mud, go around, and then, you know, we did anyway. There are moments where you're allowed to have these little release valves. Yeah. It's hard watching Gail sitting there in the mud and men holding her and weep. It's too much. It's too sad. I mean, so there are those moments that are organic and right and real, and yes, you can let it go, but don't, come on, guys, from the beginning. I mean, So it was very important to him that it was about people trying to communicate with each other and doing what every actor's supposed to do, which is what am I trying to achieve and what am I willing to do to get it? What am I willing to do to get it? Are you willing to be a fool? Are you willing to open yourself up enough? Are you willing, it was everything I wanted it to be.
My final question is, what is the best bit of advice that you've been given, either personally or professionally, that you live by?
I think I said it actually earlier, which is the best piece of advice is the thing I just said about think about what you would want to do in your life, in your existence, in your vocation, in your personal lives. In any aspect of your existence here, if you didn't have a story about why you couldn't do it, what would you do? Another way of saying that is also a partner to that is just because it took you a very long time to make a mistake doesn't mean you have to cling to it. And so those are the kind of two pieces. It's very funny. People very often, they travel back and they think about the quote that their uncle told them when they were 12, but you never stop learning. I'm 46, and the two things I just said to you were something I've learned within the last 18 months of my life, and they've completely changed the way I look at the universe. And so that's the thing. Think about what you want to do if there wasn't a story about how you couldn't do it. That would be it.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
This has been such a treat sitting with you this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, Keegan-Michael Key. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.